I'm J. Rachel Gustafson, and I'm assistant curator at the Norton Museum of Art. The architects who actually were in charge of overseeing the new Norton project, Lord Norman Foster of Foster and Partners, was really interested in bringing the old 1941 original gallery that was built with Ralph Norton, our founder, and his original architect, Meredith Wyatt Sims, back into conversation with each other. So this is the Baum Gallery. This was part of his original collection that was later bequeathed to the museum. This is our collection of modern European art, which really makes up kind of a treasure trove of some of our most important European paintings and sculpture. Pablo Picasso, Constantine Brancusi, Claude Monet. These are really hallmarks of the canon of European art. In this room, even if you look at the Claude Monet, which is right over here, it's probably not something you would necessarily associate with Monet as one of the forefathers of Impressionism. Here you clearly see this is a space in a landscape, but it's still a really interesting example of Monet working through his process to get to what we know as Impressionism later on. Before, the museum acted on a north-south corridor. Now we have an east and a west, which is really interesting to be able to see the water on one side of the museum and then the grand entrance on Dixie Highway on the other with a big banyan tree that marks the front. We're standing in the Shapiro Great Hall, which has a wonderful oculus in the ceiling to let in all the natural sunlight, as well as about a 30-foot tall window to our left where you can see the 80-year-old banyan tree that's right outside, which served as a point of inspiration for a lot of the site-specific artworks on view. We have 3 different instances of a very immersive site-specific installation for all 3 artists. It's one of our 3 site-specific works, which is behind us here, which is 40-foot long and 15-foot high tapestry by the artist Pei White, who's based out of California. This work is called Icon. So the artist created a tapestry that was in conversation with that banyan tree and in conversation with the space. In fact, with the Paul Morrison piece, which is made of gold leaf, it also is pulling inspiration from the banyan tree and Florida's native flora and fauna. And then you also have Rob Wynn's piece, which we'll see in the staircase. And it makes references to the tropical nature of Florida, the idea of constantly being surrounded by water, and memories associated with summers here. What you can see behind me are many, many pieces, actually nearly 5,000 pieces of mirrored hand-poured glass. The artist was on site to help install the work, and he actually built a to-scale template of the placement of the bubbles. So while they might look sporadic to us, these are deliberate choices and deliberate positionings of these mirrored pieces to mimic that idea of the fish aquarium, the Florida water lifestyle that we're all very used to. With the expansion, we actually gained 35% more gallery space, which is amazing. And it also means that for the first time in the museum's history, all 5 collecting departments are now represented on the first floor. Chinese art, American art, photography, contemporary art, and European. So this is the beginning of what we call one of our special exhibitions, which is Going Public. South Florida collectors celebrate the Norton. And it was a special exhibition that looked specifically within our own community for special collectors that would have worked with the Norton and to continue again and again to lend their works of art. This is the minimal room. So this is talking about minimalism. It's squarely within our contemporary art department. But when you think of minimalism, sometimes you are just thinking black and white, monochrome. And here you have just this piece that turns that on its head. Works on view here by minimalist artists that we might not be as associated with within the canon, but they're certainly getting their due as we move into an era where women artists are more recognized for their talents, such as the California-based artist Mary Corse. But as far as showing these female artists working in the field, you don't see that as often. Now you have this beautiful new building marked by something that is quirky, whimsical, and for most people, a curiosity. It's a really interesting object. It is actually a typewriter eraser. You would use a special eraser to erase typewritten text on a typewriter. And the artist Clyde Oldenburg explored the idea of the mundane or the everyday object, whether it be scissors or a screw. He looked at that object throughout his career, beginning as early as 1968, and over the next 30 years, envisioned it in all these different works on paper that you see, drawings, maquette sculptures that are smaller realizations of the more than 20-foot sculpture that stands outside, that is balanced in this very shallow field of water, and it looks like it's dancing. And actually, if you were to look at one of these earlier drawings, you can see he actually realized it in water, which is a wonderful juxtaposition to see. As late as 1970s, Claes Oldenburg was actually thinking of a monumental version of a typewriter eraser. The last time you visited us here at the Norton, we were in a reduced space that basically encompassed the original 1941 gallery. But now we're able to expand and really show the breadth of our collection and the whole history of art.